Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Second Childhood Book Quest. Now, this was sort of devised last year, and it was basically to read books that I would have read between, say, the ages of 5 and 8 years old, but I didn't when I was that age. So the criteria is that the books need to be written at the time or prior to the period that I was 5 to 8 years old, which means pre sort of 1974 ish. Um, and for that age group, for the most part, and there was five books that I chose out of I think about a dozen that were recommended. A lot of them were recommended, and the other thing is these have to be books or authors that I have not read already at subsequently at a different time. So and then I put up a poll for to read those. The first one was Paddington Bear, which I thoroughly loved, and I'll leave a link to that, and there will be a playlist for these as well. The next one that was chosen for in order, I'm doing them in sort of the percentage of votes, is Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. This was published in 1961. This does not fully fit the criteria, but it came highly recommended by many people. But it says a must read for kids 9 to 14. So that is out of my area, and it's a little longer than normal for this, because I wanted to keep ones that were sort of 200-ish. This is like 290, almost 300 pages. But that was fine, and the one thing that I wish I actually looked more into what it was about, because, and there's going to be spoilers in this as well. I'm quite conflicted with this, because there's things that I really liked about this book, and there's things that I dislike very much so. And we'll just go through sort of a brief overview, and this is going to be spoilers. It's about a little boy, Billy, and him and his family with three sisters, I think it is, mother and father, live on a farm in the Ozarks. And there's no exact date for this, but it seems like it's either the 20s or the 30s. I would say, and I think it is partially based on Wilson Rawls' childhood. He lived in the Ozarks, and Billy wants some coon dogs, coon hunting dogs. And his father says, well, he can get a collie, but no, he doesn't want that, and because he wants to go hunting for coons, and train dogs for this. So it starts out, he's like 9 years old, I think, or so, and then or 10 or somewhere like that. He's quite young, and then he decides to start saving money, and like everything that he could find, like he sees an ad for two pups, that would be $25 each, so $50 in total. A lot of money. His father couldn't afford that. His grandfather he owns the county sort of general store. I don't know which grandfather he is. Don't know whether it's on his father's side or his mom's side. That's just not said. Or I missed it, but I'm pretty sure it's not said. But anyway, he decides to save money. It takes him 2 years to save, nickels and dimes of getting $50. So he goes to his grandfather and says, can you order, like it's a mail order, order these pups for me? And his grandfather does, and by the time he's done that, the price had gone down. So it's rather than up, rather than $50 for the both, it's $40. And they eventually come, but he's got to go like 30 miles to a big town to collect them at the depot, the train depot. So he just lights out one evening, and it takes him like the best part of a night and a day, I think it is, to get there. He doesn't tell his parents what he's doing, but his grandfather knows. So his parents are quite concerned that he just sort of disappears. But he goes there and he finds that he's sort of ridiculed by the town folk as a hillbilly and so forth. But the station master knows his father, and then he meets the marshal because he gets into some fights because kids are making fun of him. And he makes his way back with his two little puppies. And over time, he trains them, and he needs to catch a raccoon first of all. So his grandfather tells him how to do this, and he doesn't sort of believe it, how it's done. And it's like, said to create a little trap where there's tacks in it and stuff, but where the raccoon will put his hand in to grab something, it won't be able to get it out. And the raccoon will never let go of what he has. He'll be stuck. He just won't. All the raccoon has to do is let go of the object, but he won't. And he'll just completely do that. So he sets up a whole bunch of traps for this. And he doesn't think it's going to work. He thinks his grandfather was joking about this. But eventually, about after a month, he does catch one, a big raccoon. So he needs the pelt or the skin in order to train the dogs. And so he gets this. So he trains the dogs, and they seem to be very good at what they do. So the first time he goes out hunting with them, once hunting season starts, it's like November, over the winter is the hunting season. And they tree a raccoon, but it's a huge, I think it's a sycamore tree, like a massive tree. It's the biggest tree in the bush or the forest around there. So he's with an axe, and he takes like 2 days to cut this bloody tree down to get this raccoon. Anyway, so he does this, and they just continue on doing this kind of thing, and he gets into a bet with some other kids that are sort of in the next county over, or the next hill or so over, that there's this, they call it a ghost raccoon that nobody can catch because he disappears. So he makes a bet that he will get, like, his dogs will get them, and he's named his dogs Dan and Ann, Old Dan and Little Ann. Silly names, but okay, he thinks they're great, but that's fine. So his dogs actually do corner and finds out what's like, the raccoons are very, very smart at how they evade, and they, cover their tracks. And there's a post on a gateway that is hollow, so it's the raccoon goes out on a branch and then drops down into this thing. But he sort of gets the raccoon out, but Billy doesn't want to kill the raccoon because he thinks that this raccoon's really smart. So he gets remorse, and he doesn't want to kill it. But the other boys there that are bullies and everything like that are saying they're going to, and then one of the boys' dogs comes, sort of gets off his leash or his chain or rope or whatever it is, and comes there, and old Dan, his Billy's dog, starts fighting with him, and they both do. Both dogs start fighting with him, and the dog, this other boy's dog, is losing. So he picks up the axe, and he's going to, kill his Billy's dogs, but he trips and falls, and the axe goes into his stomach, so the kid dies, by impaling himself on an axe. Quite gruesomely um, depicted in the story. Billy feels bad about this. Feels, that could have gone a different way, but anyway, and then time goes on for a little while, and then there's a big competition of, I think it's a whole country competition, where sort of coon dogs, and there's a cup and a prize. Turns out to be $300 prize for this. So his grandfather, Billy's grandfather, signs him up for this. So Billy, his dad, his papa, as he's called, and his grandfather, and the two dogs go for this competition, and it's quite grueling because there's a sleet storm and a snowstorm that comes, and the grandfather trips and really hurts himself, his ankle badly, and it's but Billy wins, or well, the dogs win the prize. They win the competition because the judge says it's the best coon dogs he's ever seen. So it kind of goes on like this. So he's feeling good about this, and he's continuing to hunt with the dogs. But they run into a mountain lion. The dogs pin a mountain lion up a tree, and the mountain lion, this is at nighttime, and the mountain lion was going to leap for Billy, and the dogs sort of stop it and fight with the mountain lion, and Billy winds up killing the mountain lion with his axe. But his old Dan is fatally wounded. The mountain lion sort of ripped his guts out. Billy didn't know that at the beginning, but he just, he gets him home and tries to save him, and his mother tries to save him, but yeah, he dies. The dog dies, and he buries it on a little hill underneath a tree. But then the little Anne, his other dog, sort of pines and sort of starves herself to death and dies. And so he buries them beside each other, and but because they're living, as I say, out in the back of beyond, basically. The parents do want to move into the city so the children could go to school properly, and through all the furs that Billy has got, and the $300 for the prize money, that's enough money for them to actually go and move to the city. And Billy's going to stay back and help his grandfather at the county store, because his grandfather, now with a bum leg, basically an ankle that wouldn't have healed, needs some help. So, but without the two dogs, he feels really bad. But then he goes up and sees them as they're going to leave, and there's a red fern that grows on the graves of the dogs. And it's a local sort of Indian legend. And sort of that's kind of where it ends, the book. And yeah, I'll say first of all the things that I liked about this. I liked the setting. The author was very good, and enjoying it. I really, really enjoyed the writing. The style of writing was very easy, and just the sort of setting, like the Ozarks, and traipsing through the bush and things like that I really enjoyed. I grew up, when I was really young, I was sort of in a place, not the Ozarks, but in northern Ontario, and it was sort of a uh, on top of a mountain sort of area, and there was lots of bush. And I remember going through the bush with as a kid, and even later than that, traipsing through the bush, and rail fences and all this kind of stuff. So it sort of brought back nostalgic memories for me. So I really, really like that. The thing that I don't like, and I never have, is hunting for furs. That is something that if I knew this was, I probably would have passed on it. I never have enjoyed this. I grew up where people did hunt. Hunting for food is something completely different for me, but hunting for furs or sport trophy hunting is not for me, and I don't like that. This is a personal thing, and this is a personal thing that I disliked about this book. That it's so graphic that basically the author is basically saying, like, anything that happens to the dogs you are supposed to feel bad about, but anything to the other animals that are tortured, and like there's a cat in there that they don't seem to care about, that's basically been tortured by what Billy does, and they just sort of abandon it when they leave. And you're not supposed to feel anything for this. At least that's not what the narration is saying. Nor the graphic details of how he gets his first raccoon, and how they have to get the skin, the to train the dogs. And you're not supposed to feel anything for that, as far as they doing there, but only for the dogs. And I have a problem with this, just with that. But I have a big problem with the uh, hunting for furs. It's not needed. Food, yes, I can understand. Yes, they're getting money for this, and yes, it shows that they are able to move. But there's other ways of getting money. It may take a little longer, and there's not, and you don't need to do this. And chopping down this the biggest tree around just to get it, it's just it's very nostalgic and very fanciful, too much so in many ways. It's very sentimental, too sentimental. Well, no, I don't mind sentimentality, so that's okay. But everything's perfect. Like, I mean, in many ways, other than when the dogs die at the end, he's got a perfect home life. His parents, like, they say that they're very poor, and but they got a farm, and they've got like ham. They've got lots of food, and everything is provided for them. And their grandfather has a store, so they are quite, not well off, but they're not in hardship in any way. Yes, they got to work hard, but they've got everything that they want, for food and survival, and lots of it. So that's the other thing, and it's just, as I say, and everything's perfect. Like, is more or less, his mother's worried about him, going out, and doesn't want him to have a gun and all this stuff, and that's a little bit of tension there, but that's hardly anything. Everything is perfect, with his sisters, which are barely in there at all. I know it's a story about him and his dogs, so they will play a lesser part, which I can understand that. But when they are there, they're like, I don't see any difference between the other sisters. They're all, I don't know which is which. Like, there's no definition for them. And there's an undertone of religious, which is going to be there, but it was a little heavy-handed in this. I thought it's just too heavy-handed for me, for the religion. So I would say this is a fail for me, as a book. I liked what he wrote. The second book he wrote another book called Summer of Monkeys, and it's sort of set in the Ozarks as well, but at the turn of the 20th century. And he's got, by sounds of it, it's a kid as well, the same as Billy, but different name. And he calls his dad Papa in there as well, by the looks of it, and Mama. And he's got a grandfather that has a general store. It's basically Billy redone. But if there's no hunting in it, then I might actually enjoy that one much more, because I do like the style. So I will have to, if anybody knows the second one, if they know that if it is steeped in the hunting as well, then I'll pass on it. But if it's not, then it is something that I'll read. But if I would have read this, as it says, 9 to 14, if I would have read that when I was between 9 and 14, I wouldn't have completed this, because I would have hated it. Because I remember when I was really young, I must have been 7 years old or something. I wanted a coonskin hat, but I didn't know how that was done. I probably assumed that they would just, cut the hairs off like a sheep, and make the hat. And then once I found out that they had to, it's the skin, and they kill the raccoon, I never wanted anything to do with it at all. And I really didn't want anything to do with people who did this, because, as I say, there's no reason to do this now. Yes, people say, "Oh, they got to survive," but there's other ways. Hunting for food, completely different. Anyway, if anybody does know the other book that he's done, the Summer of Monkeys, then do let me know. But as a book for me, this was a failure. Because there was just so much that I detest about hunting for furs, and that destroyed it for me. And the way the description is of some of the things, I'm not sure if a 9-year-old, maybe a 14-year-old, okay, there might be some, but 9-year-old is a little young to be reading about some of these things. I would have thought, but that's me. Anyway, I know this is a beloved book, children's book, but, or, a little more, I guess, than just children. But, I would not recommend it to anyone. If they, I wouldn't recommend it, because I would not recommend anything that has to do with hunting for furs. Nothing at all. I would never recommend that for that reason. But I do say that he's a good writer, so I am more interested in other things that he did. Well, he did one other book, as far as I can tell. Anyway, next time will be, the next one on the list is How to Eat Fried Worms by Thomas Rockwell. This is really short. I should be able to do this very, very quickly. I'm not sure when I can do this, but this will be the next one that I read for Second Childhood Book Quest. Thank you, BookTube.